Boston, among surprise contenders, if Bradley Beal secures Beyonce's shockwave, could soon hit the NBA. Word is spreading that Bradley Beal, shackled by a no-trade clause and a nightmarish contract in Phoenix, is on the brink of negotiating a buyout to finally escape the Suns' financial implosion. League insider Mark Stein dropped a weekend bombshell. Bell is actively exploring options with other teams as the buyout talks accelerate. If the buyout becomes official, the dominoes could fall in unexpected ways, and the Boston Celtics may stand perfectly positioned to pounce. Unlike other contenders that have already leveraged most of their assets or lack the financial maneuverability to absorb a veteran scorer, Boston has been strategically clearing space and may have a rare window to bring in Bell on a manageable short-term deal. This is no small opportunity. While Bell's production last season, minus 17 points per game, his lowest since 2015, might look underwhelming on paper, it masks a deeper story. In Phoenix, he was a miscast third option, forced to coexist in a dysfunctional offense that never gave him room to operate. Even at 32, Bell's skill set as a three-level scorer is intact, and in a structured, defense-first environment like Boston, he could experience a powerful resurgence. His contract still carries an eye-watering $110 million over the next 2 seasons, protected by a no-trade clause he carefully negotiated. But the buyout would require him to sacrifice roughly $13.9 million, a sign of just how desperate he might be to re-establish himself on a relevant roster with championship aspirations. That desperation could play directly into Boston's hands, with Jayson Tatum projected to miss most of the season. The Celtics are facing a leadership vacuum on the perimeter. Jaylen Brown cannot carry the entire scoring burden while also absorbing the defensive attention of every opponent. Boston explored Damian Lillard earlier this summer, but with Lillard recovering from a devastating Achilles injury, his availability and explosiveness remain questionable. Bell, by contrast, is healthy, motivated, and still boasts a lethal mid-game, precisely the profile of a veteran who could stabilize the Celtics' title ambitions during Tatum's absence. Beyond raw scoring, Bell brings valuable late-game shot creation, playoff-tested experience, and the ability to navigate double teams. Crucial skills in a postseason setting that has repeatedly exposed Boston's lack of poise when its stars go cold. If Phoenix finally lets go of its failed Big Three experiment and Bell hits free agency, don't be surprised if Boston seizes its chance. The window is narrow, but the payoff, a rejuvenated, hungry Bradley Beal on a contender, could be the twist the Celtics need to keep their championship window from slamming shut. The Boston Celtics might have just suffered the most catastrophic offseason meltdown of any franchise in the league, hemorrhaging talent and depth at a pace that would make even rebuilding teams blush. The forced departures of J.R. Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, a pair of vital cogs in last year's championship push, were driven not by basketball logic, but by the cold, merciless chokehold of the new CBA's financial restrictions. To rub salt in the wound, the Celtics then had to overpay to retain Luke Kornet, a player who was never supposed to be more than a bench piece. Meanwhile, the future of veteran heartbeat Al Horford is twisting in the wind, leaving Boston on the brink of a crisis of identity that could echo for seasons to come. But even as the walls crack, there is a faint glimmer of hope, a long shot, that might rescue this spiraling summer from total ruin. The Celtics cannot afford to miss on the scraps left in the free agency market, and among those scraps is one hidden gem that could quietly transform them: Precious Achiuwa. Most casual fans will shrug off Achiuwa's name, but that would be a mistake. Beneath the mediocre offensive numbers is a 25-year-old defensive wrecking ball who's been criminally underutilized in New York. He's a switchable big with the foot, speed to track guards at the arc, and the strength to hold his own in the paint, a rare profile that could be a godsend for Joe Mazzulla's switching schemes. If Al Horford leaves, Achiuwa's arrival could be the only thing stopping Boston's frontcourt from collapsing entirely. Sure, Achiuwa's offensive game is a mess: a shaky three-point shot, questionable shot selection, and minimal playmaking skills make him a liability with the ball. But the Celtics have made a habit of rehabbing flawed players, and it's hard to imagine they couldn't coax more out of Achiuwa's raw tools than Tom Thibodeau ever did with his punishing, grind-you-down rotations in New York. Look around. Boston is reportedly sniffing around names like Luka Garza, Georges Niang, Neemias Queta, and Xavier Tillman, solid role players, but none with the ceiling Achiuwa has if he finds the right system. In a world where their championship window is already under siege by financial rules, this might be the only high-upside gamble left on the table. And if they don't move quickly, someone else will grab him, leaving the Celtics with a gutted roster, a hobbled identity, and a cold reminder that title dreams can die overnight in the ruthless ecosystem of the NBA. No matter how you try to spin it half full, half empty, the next Celtics season is staring straight into an abyss that no one in Boston dared to imagine. 1 year after, they stood on top of the world, lifting banner 18 with the pride of a dynasty reborn. An unholy cocktail of misfortune, injury, and financial punishment has reduced the proudest franchise in NBA history to a state of chaotic freefall. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, the twin pillars of the Jays era, are both fresh off the surgeon's table, with Tatum's catastrophic Achilles tear threatening not just a season, but the entire arc of his superstardom if there was any lingering delusion that the Celtics might reload for another shot. The front office made their intentions coldly, brutally clear. They flipped Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis for salary relief, effectively tearing the spine out of the championship roster. Luke Kornet is gone to San Antonio, and Al Horford, the soul of the locker room for nearly a decade, is staring at retirement, a symbol of how quickly a banner can fade in the second apron era. The result? A 61-win juggernaut that now looks more like a G League experiment. 6 players on rookie-scale contracts, 2 others playing on prove-it deals, and a supporting cast that screams unintentional tank. That's not a retool. That's scorched earth. If you think the next season is about tweaking schemes or choosing which types of shooters to surround the Jays with, you're missing the bigger picture. This is about something far more existential. Tatum and Brown are entering their physical primes at a moment when the Celtics might, by force, have to break apart everything that made them contenders. Over the next 5 years, the question won't be how to complement the Jays. It will be whether the Jays can even be the centerpiece of a winning team under a cap system designed to punish success. A subtle shift, you might say. Hardly. When Holiday, Porzingis, and Horford arrived, they acted as stabilizers, veterans who meshed perfectly with 2 rising perimeter stars. Porzingis, when his legs worked, gave them a lethal pick-and-pop weapon. Holiday's defensive versatility took the burden off Brown and Tatum. Horford's mentorship, that steady father figure presence, was the glue. Now nothing but questions. And not just tactical questions, spiritual ones. Joe Matsula's three-point revolution only worked because the Celtics had an embarrassment of veteran riches to spread the floor. Switch on defense and cover for each other's flaws. Strip those pieces away, and the beautiful math might collapse into ugly bricks. Boston is about to find out what happens when you rely on kids to fight grown men in a league where, thanks to the new CBA, youth is a mandatory weapon rather than a luxury. You need to squeeze value from rookies and cheap role players, the same way OKC milked Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe, or Indiana rode Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin to a 7-game brawl. But are the Jays really built to teach and inspire that next wave? Tatum might not even set foot on the floor until late in the season, if at all, and there's no guarantee he'll ever look like an MVP again. That leaves Brown Finals MVP last year, yes, but a flawed offensive initiator, and not a heliocentric demigod like Luka Doncic. Instead, Brown will have to be the template for a new Celtics identity, a defense-first workhorse, who can still punish you with 3-level scoring in a movement-based system. That's the test, and it's not a small one, because once the fairy dust of a banner wears off, you're left with harsh questions. Who can you trust? Derek White, of course. Maybe Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, if the shooting holds up. But a championship team is built on 9 or 10 dependable players, not a couple of high-usage stars surrounded by spare parts. For now, Boston's reality feels like an academic sabbatical, a year off to find itself like a British teenager, backpacking through Thailand. Only this gap year is involuntary, enforced by the NBA's iron-fisted second apron rules. Celtics will burn through next season trying to discover if Jordan Walsh's defensive chaos translates, if Baylor Shireman's hot streak was a mirage, if Hugo Gonzalez can bring that Real Madrid pace to the NBA without tripping over his own feet. It's a brutal, high-stakes lab experiment, one that could destroy a dynasty before it ever truly took root, or, if lightning somehow strikes again, build the foundation for Banner 19. Either way, Boston is on the edge of a cliff, and there is no safety net waiting at the bottom.